What's up, everyone? You're listening to episode 321 of the Membership Guys podcast, and it is our birthday.
Woohoo!
That's right. It is the 6th anniversary of Membership Academy, and as has become a tradition here on the Membership Guys podcast, to mark the occasion, I have the one and only Callie Willows joining me today.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, we're going to dive into the last 12 months of what's gone on within the Academy, what's gone on within the Membership Guys business, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. So we're going to get into it in just a sec.
You're listening to the Membership Guys podcast, bringing you proven, practical tips and advice from the leading experts on growing a successful membership business each and every week. And now, here's your host, Mike Morrison.
Hello there. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Membership Guys podcast. This is a very special episode with the one and only, the other half, many would say the better half of the Membership Guys, Callie Willows, joining me today.
Hello.
Welcome back on the show.
Thank you. It's good to be back. My yearly outing
Yeah.
out the cupboard.
Well, you've got your own podcast now. So,
That is true.
Yeah, as we always kind of joke, but kind of half seriously, we talk about anytime you come on the show, it's always amongst our most popular episodes. So I get a little bit of a complex. I've got an ego. I can't have you on.
Just take it as a good thing.
Okay, I can't have
It's
you on.
just our bants.
It is. I can't have you on too often. All right, so today's episode marks the 6th anniversary of Membership Academy. 6 years ago, we opened the doors to the Academy for the very first time. The world was very different. Our business was very different. Our lives was very different. But one thing that has remained the same is that every year, to mark the occasion, we like to do a little anniversary recap, a review of what's happened in the previous 12 months. And we kind of pride ourselves on being transparent, on not just talking about the amazing stuff, not doing what so many people in the online business world do and just go on about, oh, I made this much money, we had this much success. Because everyone has struggles, everyone has downs as well as ups. They just tend not to talk about it, whereas we don't gloss over that stuff, because for us, as we always say, memberships are a business. They're not a gimmick. It's not a get-rich-quick thing. It's not some magic formula to untold success. It's a business, and every business has highs and lows. And we know from what you guys tell us, listening to our stories, and basically us being able to just show you behind the curtain at the realities of running our membership business helps you in yours as well. So I always love these episodes.
Yeah, they're good fun.
They are. I'm trying to give you opportunities to talk. It's so strange having to
You
leave.
said everything.
Yeah, having to leave a gap for someone else to speak. I'm so used to the sound of my own voice. All right, so before we get into that, if this is the first time that you are listening to the Membership Guys podcast, first of all, welcome and congratulations. You picked a doozy of an episode to start with. Make sure you hit that subscribe button in your podcast player to ensure that you do not miss a single weekly dose of membership advice. And if you're a long-term listener or a long-term subscriber, you know I love you. You know we appreciate each and every second of your time and attention that you give us here on the show. Thank you so much for your continued support. So, 2021, what a year.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely been a year.
It's been a year.
That's one way to describe it. Yeah, definitely. I think the tail end of 2020 into the start of this year, I'm not going to lie, it's been a tough one. It's felt like a tough one.
It has. And not just for us. I think everyone's obviously bore the brunt of it. You know, we left off last year's episode, which again we did as part of our Memberpalooza birthday celebration. And once again this year, we're actually recording and broadcasting the recording of this live as part of our Memberpalooza birthday celebration. And at that point, we were, 6 or 7 months into the pandemic. So I'm not going to say kind of we'd had the worst of it, but in terms of the adjustment period for a lot of people, in terms of the shock, in terms of the impact that the pandemic had on people's businesses and lives, that we were kind of right there on you know, basically where we left off on last year's episode.
Well,
right?
we were actually thinking we were coming out of it at the end of, so that was that beautiful month where we were out of lockdown in the UK. Things started seeming like they were going back to normal, and then everything shut down again for an even longer. So
Yeah. So I think in terms of kind of us and our business, I mean, obviously, you know, the effect that it has on just your day-to-day life and stuff like that. We've all gone through that. In terms of us and our business, it really changed our focus, in terms of projects that we've been thinking about pursuing, in terms of basically changing like what we'd been doing day to day as well. And I would say since the last episode, the last anniversary episode, really the biggest thing that the pandemic's done for us is refocused us pretty much 100% on the membership, where actually prior to that, we'd started to kind of diverge a little bit into a few other things. We did our conference, and that went phenomenally well. This was in 2019. And of course, everyone was kind of hounding us to do the next one, right? To do Retain 2020, which I'm glad we didn't. We dodged a bullet on that one. And in Retain 2021, they wanted to see a new conference from us every year. So that was pretty much going to start to become a big part of what we focused on within our business, besides just the membership.
Yeah, definitely. Retain 2021. We already had that penciled in terms of venues and dates.
The venue.
We had the wait list up for it. Yeah. And I think it wasn't until, I think we both kind of knew when the pandemic hit last year that it probably wasn't going to happen. Yeah. But I don't think it was until maybe September, October that we just definitely knew, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah. And, we've got a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues who run events, and I speak at events as well around the world. Callie's done some speaking. So we've kind of got our ear to the ground on the events scene. And in particular, because we had recently done our own conference and we were, again, tentatively going to be doing a one in 2021, we've really been paying attention to what they were saying and what they were doing, and who was delaying their event, who was cancelling their event. It's just not a good time to be in the event space. So things like that, I think, really kind of helped us totally focus 100% on the membership, because we were expecting there to be a much bigger impact on Membership Academy from the pandemic. And we spoke about this last year. We thought there'd be a bigger initial drop in sales and increase in churn, because all of a sudden people's priorities were changing, right? They were, had less resources. They were maybe, starting a membership as a side thing, and then all of a sudden they're laid off from work, and actually their priority is just putting food on the table, keeping the lights on. So we kind of thought there'd be a bigger initial impact, and there wasn't. For us.
No, I think we had an initial kickback in March when things were very uncertain for everyone. But then from April till December, we had record growth every month.
Yeah.
We had phenomenal growth last year. And that was great, because actually what we found was that so many people were using, what was happening with the pandemic. Maybe they were at home more, maybe they had lost their job and things like that, to actually refocus on creating an online business and online membership and being able to serve people that way. We saw a huge amount of people taking their offline businesses online into memberships as well. So actually, whilst we thought initially it was going to be terrible for us, it ended up that we were able to help a lot more people than we kind of expected to. And then this year is where we kind of felt the after effects.
Yeah, totally. So it was that thing where we kind of knew that the other shoe was going to drop at some point, and that the pandemic would impact our business, our membership growth, more than it had done within the first 6 or 7 months. And again, I think when we spoke on last year's anniversary episode, we pointed out the very first month when everything went to hell, there was that initial that initial like bad month, which we knew would happen, which everyone had. But then everything shot up again. But we knew there would come a point where the bill would come due in terms of us feeling the pandemic hitting our business. We knew that was going to happen. Yeah. And so I think the combination of having that period of, 5 or 6 months of our membership growing and more people being refocused on memberships, plus that spidey sense that there was rockier times ahead, that really gave us the kick up the butt to focus 100% on the membership, to forget about any other distractions, forget about other projects, and we'll talk about them in a second, and just get really, really narrow in our focus just on the membership, because we knew that we had to help people now more than ever, but we also knew at some point there will be rougher seas ahead for us, and so we need to make sure that we're ready. And from the start of 2021, we say we kind of we'll share the ups and the downs. From the start of 2021, growth of our membership has been rockier than it has ever been before.
Yeah, in terms of, I think from about February onwards, when lockdown started lifting, people got sick of being online so much. People were going back to work and things like that. Then, we found that sales have slowed down, churn's gone up. And that's an uncomfortable place to be, I have to say. It's, we have had 5.5 years of really good growth, steady growth as well. So hitting that rocky patch is uncomfortable.
It is. But at the same time, when what's uncomfortable for us is very much in the context of how fortunate we've been up to that point. We've had genuinely unprecedented month on month, literally every single month for 5.5 years. Our membership has grown. Our member base has grown. Our revenue is more with every month that passes. That's unprecedented. And so this is why when I say, we knew that we had to brace ourselves for choppier times, because we knew that couldn't continue. It had continued for 6 or 7 months during the pandemic. But the thing with memberships is it can often take a little bit longer for you to feel the impact of events, because churn is a lagging indicator. Something that happens today might not start to actually materialize in terms of your performance, your churn rate, until 6 months down the line. So we knew that was going to come, and it did come. We've had some months where we've not grown anywhere near as much as we would expect to. We've had months where we've gone a little bit backwards, where member numbers and the number of people who have either left or put their account on pause, which again, we gave people the ability and emphasized that option in light of the pandemic, where there's been more people doing that than there have been people joining, which isn't something that we're as accustomed to day to day as probably the average membership site owner is. And even though we prepared ourselves for that and we knew it was going to happen, and we know, we always say don't take cancellations personally, don't take people leaving your membership personally. There is a comfort zone, there is a comfort level you get into mentally, whether you understand the logic behind it or not, whether you know 100%, no, listen, we knew this was going to happen. It makes sense that this is happening. When you are accustomed to just enjoying that smooth, steady sailing, that smooth upwards trajectory, even the slightest of wobble can knock your confidence. It can knock you mentally. And so, that's definitely been something we've had to be more mindful of and deal with more this year as a result of the pandemic than ever before.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it was unfortunate because that period of rockiness with the business combined with quite a stressful time for us personally as well, because we were buying a house. There was a lot of stress. There was a lot of issues. There was issues with our cat being unwell and all things like that, where it all built together, that we had a couple of months there where I definitely lost my mojo. I wasn't in a great place. I wasn't in a terrible place. I was still in the academy and things like that, but definitely was tired and just wasn't firing on all cylinders.
No, I mean, buying a house, maintaining a business during a pandemic, a global pandemic, I don't think it's unexpected that it might pile up a little bit. And I don't think there's any shame in admitting that. And it's, this is where having two of us in the business is beneficial, because if one of us is having a wobble or a confidence crisis, then you have the other one to prop the other up, and vice versa. We do. We take it in turns. We've essentially got a 50% greater chance of navigating those choppier mental waters than the average person in business does. And but again, this is all part and parcel of business. It's certainly by no means the most stressful thing we've ever been through in business. No. Like, it doesn't compare to some of the challenges that we had earlier in our careers.
God, no.
But it is very much a case of when you have smooth waters.
Yeah, when you're comfortable.
5 or 6 years, then as soon as the boat starts to rock, and I mean, we can't understate the added stress of buying and moving home and all that sort of stuff, because that has been a mess.
Yeah, it wasn't an easy move.
No.
But I would say that, it was maybe a difficult time, but the benefits that has brought to us in terms of lifestyle and health of the actual move, now we're moved, and we're still in chaos. So we only moved 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we're still in a bit of chaos at the time of recording this, still not fully unpacked and everything like that. But even now already, just the changes in lifestyle and health that's brought us starting to get our mojo back again.
And it's the same with kind of the rockier period of growth with the academy as well, because what it does is it lights a fire under your butt to step things up, to not become complacent. And when we're saying you become comfortable and you become complacent. We talked about this on last year's episode when we were discussing the conference that we did, and in particular how much that pulled our focus away from the academy, and how to an extent there were certain things about the academy, certain areas in which we became complacent when it came to like the content we were putting out and stuff like that. But even the most stressful of times, even the global pandemic, the silver lining is that it refocuses you. It helps you to kind of get to a place where you're like, okay, we might like to do this, but this isn't going to move the needle. We've been putting this thing off. Actually, let's just put it aside because it's not a priority. Like, it can be a real clarifying, real crystallizing thing to get pushed out of that comfortable complacency. And certainly we've seen that as well. So, sorry.
No, and I was going to say, and I think a big factor as well is, we should mention as well that, a big part of the growth this year is we've taken our foot off the pedal when it comes to marketing, because we have been focused on the internal academy experience, so looking after the existing members. And so whilst we're still putting out the podcast, we're still putting out great free content, we took our foot off the pedal in terms of doing anything else marketing wise. We've not been doing promotions or anything like that, or doing any big pushes. It's pretty much just been the content marketing. So we've not been as kind of front and center as perhaps we have been in previous years.
Yeah, definitely, because there's only so much you can do. One of the big things, again, when we talked about just focusing 100% on the academy, one of the kind of periods of difficult decision making that we had to go through was the decisions to put certain projects on hold that we'd kind of factored into our plans for like years to come, and we've been planning and talking in 2019 and in early 2020. It was very much mapping out the years to come. Okay, we'll have the academy and this is what we'll be doing here. We'll have this thing and this is what we'll be doing here. And a lot of that stuff got put on hold. So we've already mentioned the conference, Retain Live. It's a funny one with the conference anyway, because we genuinely nailed the first one. We really did. I mean, there were people who ran events for years telling us this was one of the best they've ever been to. The feedback from attendees on everything was just mind-blowingly positive. Everything went smoothly. Everything went without a hitch. It was amazing. And so there's a part of you that is like, okay, so now we need to do this all the time because we're obviously good at it. But then there's a part of you who's like,
but we can't top that.
We can't top that. Like, so shall we just leave it be? So we'd had a little bit of reticence about doing a second one anyway. Certainly not in the same way we did it before, because honestly, one of the biggest challenges is speakers, because it's a growth-focused conference. And so you need to find speakers who have a membership or work in the membership world, which is slims the market down a lot, are based in the UK or can get here, which again narrows things down significantly, have a good relationship with us already. We know them, we trust them, we've seen them speak, and you know they're willing to put in the effort and the work, which again narrows it down. And so it's such slim pickings. Oh, also, they need to have expertise that will help memberships in the growth stage that is specific to memberships. Again, narrow. So it was difficult enough finding fantastic speakers for our first Retain Live. We exhausted the list, barring maybe 2 or 3 people who couldn't make it first time round. So we had been thinking of doing it again, probably changing the format. That's just on hold. That's just on the shelf. Maybe we might, revisit it once the events world's back up and running. I can't imagine anything any earlier than 2023.
No, not with the amount of planning that it requires. And it's a shame because it is one of the most requested. We'd ran an annual survey recently of members, and one of the most requested things was for another live event like that. But I can imagine we'll probably do something a little smaller, maybe some smaller, more local events
Possibly.
or traveling events. But again, that's something that we're not in the space to think about or plan at the minute.
No, it's so unpredictable as well. I mean, I'm booked to attend an event as an attendee over in the States in November, and already it's end of August.
You're not allowed in.
And we're still not allowed into the US from the UK. And who knows if that'll change in time without quarantines, without whatever. So much is still up in the air in terms of events in general. And even when we talk about the smaller events, previously, we would run masterclass days. We would run like small group mastermind sessions in the US. We'd go and attend conferences in the US or speak at conferences in the US, and then we'd run little one-off events on the back of them, member meetups, masterminds, and stuff. But again, we can't even plan for stuff like that. So anything event related, particularly our conference, that is on hold. Something else big that is on hold indefinitely is member intel. Some of you won't know what that is. Many of you won't know what that is because we deliberately didn't shout about it too much. But we had been in the process of developing an analytics system for online memberships, predominantly WordPress-based online memberships, that would basically give you reports on revenue, churn, growth, trial conversion rates, trial retention rates, all that sort of stuff. And we first announced this at Retain Live 2019. It's fair to say people were excited about that.
Yes, yeah. Got a massive cheer from the audience. That.
Yes, because the plan was, and resurfaces will remain, that this is something that is offered as part of the Academy membership not for free, because obviously you pay for the Academy, but if you're an Academy member, you will also get this. The project was in an advanced stage.
Yeah, we use it for our business.
We use it for ours.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so, in situations where someone has the exact same setup as ours, it functions with certain things that don't quite work yet because, again, it's not a finished system. But it's one of those things where there's such a big gap between having something that is usable internally and having something which you can take out to mass market and have people sign up for and have people pay for if they're not an Academy member, and have separate accounts and all the sort of administrative options with that. There's such a big gap between where it is now and where it would need to be to put it out there. And again, it's just one of those things that just had to deprioritize. And it was disappointing for us to have to do that. Disappointing, obviously, for people who were excited about it and waiting for it. But, needs must. And the academies had to be our big focus. Now, it will resurface because, enough of the work's done for it to not go to waste. And, there's still a massive need for it. There's always part of me that's hoping that, someone will just pop up tomorrow and say, oh, I've just built this incredible analytics service for memberships that does everything Member Intel was going to do and more.
But then you'd be really annoyed that
I wouldn't, though, because actually the reason we were doing this, again, it wasn't like, oh, here's an opportunity to make loads of money.
Yeah.
Because we were going to give it away for free to Academy members, right? And yes, it would mean we'd get more members. Yes, it would mean we'd keep more members. But the money was never the driving factor. The driving factor was the problem that the online membership space has with getting access to data. And the fact that if you don't know your numbers with your membership, you're flying blind. Like, for as many plugins, as much software as there is out there, the fact that none of them really have great reporting. Like, none of them have reports on this is your churn rate.
MemberMouse and
Does
Digital
it?
Access
MemberMouse
Pass.
does. Okay. MemberMouse and DAP. And they're 2 out of dozens and dozens of membership plugins. But nothing is doing reporting as well as it should be.
No.
And, it was one of those projects which was like, okay, if the software developers in the membership space aren't going to do this, I'm going to have to do it myself.
Yeah.
So
And
it's disappointing that we had to put that on hold.
Yeah, it is. But I definitely think that next year I can imagine you getting the urge to pick that up again.
Maybe.
But
Maybe. But again, I think it's one of those things that,
it definitely needed to be deprioritized
Really
in order
did.
to allow us to focus on all the other things we've done this
Yeah.
year instead.
yeah. And the other project,
Was Member Intel was kind of your project mainly
Yeah.
because I can't do the coding side of things. And then my project was writing our third book.
Yeah.
So I've got maybe about 50% of that written at the moment. And that was something that we really wanted to publish, well, actually in 2020, let alone 2021. And again, that was something that's just had to be deprioritized in terms of the amount of time that we have available.
Yeah.
But it is on the back burner still. It's, again, the initial work's there. So,
but it's one of the, it's one
but
of
I
those
also
things.
love it. I love that. I love what it, I don't want to give too much away about it, but yeah, it's retention focused and I really like the way it's done.
Again, these things will resurface, probably not with any final product in 2022.
God,
But
that's scary.
I know. But don't be surprised if you see both a live event and a new book and new software coming out in 2023, which will be it'll be crazy considering that will have been 4 years since
God.
the last Return Live. I know. I'm just
you're just depressing me now. You're depressing me
So
now.
let's move on. So again, really the whole crux of this is the biggest thing that the pandemic's done for us on a business point of view is just totally crystallized our focus on the academy. And as part of that, probably the most significant thing for us over the last year has been growing our team.
Yeah, and I think this is something, I think we maybe touched on it at the end of last year's podcast, that this was something that we were looking at doing moving forward. And I think it's something I've always been a lot more hesitant about than you.
I've been hesitant about bringing on full-timers.
Yes, having full-time employees is definitely very different to subcontractors. I think you've had a lot more experience in your past business life of managing people and teams.
Yeah, I used to
whereas
manage I used to manage like sales departments. So the managerial side of things was never an issue. But even then, different world. I would rock up in a suit, tie, cufflinks, and sit in an office.
Have to see it to believe it.
It's crazy. I was only like 23, 24 as well. I looked ridiculous. I was too young to be wearing grown-up clothes. Well, I dress more grown-up than I do now. At the time of recording, in my Star Wars T-shirt and my weird pandemic haircut. That's something that I've got experience of. But again, it's a different world, different life. And, especially in the pandemic world, knowing that, okay, we're going to bring on employees. These are people we're not going to be able to sit in a room with in person. This is all going to be remote, at least to begin with.
Yeah, but I have to say there was something in the timing that felt, for want of a better word, quite good about being able to give people jobs and well-paying jobs at a time when a lot of people were struggling and things like that, being able to actually help a family, essentially.
Well, a big part of it was, you always have this thing when you start achieving success in business where your mindset around money switches, where for the initial period, it's just like, look at this money that is coming in, look at this money that is accumulating. This is my pile of gold. It was like in
Scrooge, is it?
DuckTales, Scrooge McDuck with his vault of gold. Like, you're just amassing this. But the reality is, if you want to access any of it, you're going to take a massive hit in tax. And so there is that point where you realize, like, just making and accumulating money, especially if you have something like a membership, which is broadly speaking, quite a high margin, low cost type of business to run. There's no premises, there's no manufacturing costs, there's no unit costs to take care of. Like, it's all online. You're hosting, really, things like the important stuff you're hosting, the cost of it doesn't go up that much. You know, maybe your first couple of years you're paying $50 a month, and a few years in you're paying $200 a month. Like, the economies of scale when it comes to a membership are just so different to other types of businesses. And I think it was that thing of like, you know, hang on, we're getting to that point where like we're not investing the excess money, the excess revenue we're making. We're not investing enough. And I remember a conversation we had with Scott Devine.
That's what I was going to talk about as well.
Scott Devine, founder of Scott's Base Lessons, ex-client of ours. Love the guy. The most painfully, sickeningly cool man you'll ever meet. I mean, he's just chill, but he's also a lot more switched on. Very savvy, he'd hate to be described as entrepreneurial, although these days he might not. I think he's embraced it a bit. But, you know, he's very, very switched on. I remember having that conversation in Leeds.
Yeah, and I remember very distinctly him talking about wanting to bring his profit margin down, and that he was working hard to do that, and that was what his priority was. And I think both of us have always prided ourselves on how high our profit margin was.
It was like 90 odd percent.
Yeah, which we always saw that as a badge of honor of just how good that profit margin was. And then listening to Scott talk about, you know, actually actively working to reduce his profit in his business, just kind of fired a light bulb in my head of like, hang on, we're thinking about this a bit wrong.
And this was like 2017, I think.
Yeah.
When that wasn't the last time we had dinner with Scott, was it?
Probably was. Retain.
No,
we saw him at Retain.
Yeah, but yeah, it was one of those things where it was like, that's just a little bit crazy. But it happens because unless you're putting the money back into your business, there is a limit to how much you can pay yourself without reaching a point where it's self-defeating, where, you know, for every pound or every dollar you're taking out, you're giving 3 times as much to the tax man.
Yeah, and neither of us are at a place yet where we're happy doing that.
No. You know, I think, you know, paying tax is civic duty and all that sort of stuff. But also, I'd much rather take a big old chunk of money every year and
pay someone else.
Yeah, have that go into the pockets of other people.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, obviously not like a totally altruistic charitable act. Having those people actually being amazingly talented, amazingly skilled people who enhance and build our business. So that has really been a big focal point for us from kind of October-ish, September,
Yeah, we
October-ish.
brought on the first we started interviewing in September for a head of digital content and brought Catherine on board the beginning of October. So Catherine's our head of digital content now. Really lucky with Catherine because Catherine was actually previously a member of Membership Academy. She had her own business, a PR business.
Had her own membership.
Yeah, we knew her. She's local-ish to us. We knew her. She'd been to Retain. We've met her at other conferences. You know, we share certain geeky interests and have had dinner together and things. So we were really lucky with that first hire that it was somebody that we actually knew and already had a relationship with, which I think took some of the anxiety out of that hire. And then shortly after Catherine, we brought on board Tom, our graphic designer, who is absolutely so sickeningly talented. Like all those little graphics you see going out on our social these days, that's all Tom, and he's just awesome. Little animated versions of us as well, which, you know, we never would have expected. So those first 2 hires were excellent. I think the third hire, which we hired for in December and who started in January, was my toughest hire. Personally.
Well, it's kind of the same thing with both Catherine and Tom. Catherine and Tom were tough. Well, Catherine's was probably the toughest role for me because it was the one in which, you know, she'd be picking up more of the things that I'd previously been doing around content strategy, both inside the membership and, you know, our public facing, our podcast and blog and stuff. Tom, again, the design side of things always been more my realm, but we had been working with a subcontractor on the design. Plus, graphic design is a much more traditionally well-established role. Head of digital content for an online membership isn't. Community manager for an online membership isn't. So those were very much us kind of just trying to like muddle out, okay, what the hell is this? What is this position that we need filled?
Yeah. And I think with our community manager role in particular, for me, I've always prided myself on how active I am in the Academy community and taking care of our members. It's something I love to do. And I've always, it's my favorite thing. So the idea of handing over a lot of that to somebody else, especially somebody who's a stranger to our community, because you're trusting them to essentially be a third face of the business, Hannah, who eventually got the community manager job, is the most visible person in our business now, aside from us. And so that's a lot of responsibility to push onto somebody.
It's a lot of trust, there's a lot of faith, and it's much more than any of the other roles. It's something where you're relying so much more on the intangible, right? It's not just, can you work this process? Can you think this way? Can you do this job? Can you apply these skills? It's the intangible, because, Hannah hosts calls with our members. Hannah sends welcome videos to our members. And so those kind of softer skills, the personability, the communication skills, the ability to be enthusiastic and perky when you're having a bad day, like all those kind of things, and to represent your business, to capture your voice, and to be another membership guy, essentially. It's hard to write a job spec for that.
Yeah, and I think we very much went into that. We've tried having people help in the community before to various degrees. And I think we went into this very much the community manager role in terms of looking for fit rather than skills.
Yeah.
And we ended up with 3 very, very close calls for who it would come down to. And, they all had different levels of experience, different good and bad points. And Hannah, who we chose, was actually the least experienced in community management. She didn't actually have any real previous experience in this kind of role. But looking at the fit and everything else and personality and things like that, we decided to take that chance on Hannah. And couldn't have worked out better, to be honest.
Yeah, completely. Like we struck gold, I think, with all the team. But Hannah in particular, because, graphic design, Tom's phenomenal. But Tom can show us that he's phenomenal at graphic design by designing something awesome, right? He can just hold up something and say, this is my proof. Less so with the head of digital content, but even then, we can, and we did kind of, look at a body of work, look at content that's been produced before, look at, social media campaigns, all that sort of stuff. So much harder to do with the more intangible role of community manager. But the thing that I love with all of these 3 as well, all of them were the first applicant.
They were, yeah.
Yeah.
Was Hannah the first applicant?
Hannah was the first applicant. Yeah. She was.
I'll trust you on that. I can't actually remember.
Hannah was the first applicant. Tom was the first applicant because we
Tom
were
definitely
worried.
Was because we loved his portfolio.
Yeah, we loved his portfolio, and we were very tempted to just go right ahead and take him on. And we were worried he was going to get offered a job elsewhere. And Catherine, I think, reached out to us pretty much as soon as the job ad went out, because just the timing of that worked out perfect. So it's obviously been challenging, because you don't just bring in a team and then overnight, okay, 50% of our work is now being done by other people. There's a bedding in process, and there's an amount of your day that then becomes about management, about making sure they've got work to do, that they don't run out of work, and, just keeping on top of things. But they've been phenomenal. I mean, they've blown us away. They bring so much to the table. They've enabled us to do a lot that we wouldn't be able to do, or we put off because it was just us before. And obviously, a shout out to Laura, was already on our team in the customer support side of things.
Laura's been with us for 4 years now.
Something like that.
And we worked with Laura before for Scott at Scott's Bases. And so I think we've known Laura for about 8 or 9 years now.
Something like that. And so, Catherine, Tom, Hannah, there are 3 full-timers. And with the exception, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 other roles I will possibly add in, depending on how things go with the Academy in the future. But as it stands, I think we've got a solid team. We also, as well, obviously on a subcontract basis, now have someone helping us out with the tech support in the community as well, because previously that was largely coming down to myself and a couple of very helpful members, like Cesar Pinto in particular, extremely helpful member who, would help answer some tech questions, but, he was just doing that to be helpful, right? And obviously because, sometimes it would turn into work for him as well for more complex stuff, which is awesome. But, you can't send a message to someone who's helping you in that way and say, hey, why haven't you been in the forum for 2 days? These posts are unanswered. Like you can't put all your eggs in that basket. So we brought on Neil, who I've known Neil since 2009. I've known Neil since. I've known Neil for 12 years now. We worked on projects together when I've been freelance, when we've had the agency. I've met him a few times as well at different networking events and different things. So we worked on projects for ITV. I think it was Neil I worked with on a project for McDonald's. Ancestry was not Neil. Ancestry was someone else. But yeah, we worked on a lot of stuff together. And now Neil is, some of you in the Academy will have seen Neil. You've had help from Neil, helping out with Memberoni in particular, and other tech talk things as well. And that's just a big weight off my shoulders too. So combined, that just frees us up to play with more things, to do more things in the Academy, to experiment a little more in the quest to kind of really find, okay, what is going to help our members get results the best, the most effectively, the fastest, just what can we offer that's either better than what we've been doing, that adds to it, that gets people there quicker. And so this last year has been a big one of experimentation in terms of what our members are getting inside the Academy.
Yeah, it really has. We've really been looking at kind of, I'll say perfecting for want of a better word, but we all know perfection doesn't exist and it will always evolve, but just really fine-tuning our member experience, as Mike said, to kind of give people exactly what they need to help them create and grow the best membership site possible. And content's always been where we've excelled. I think both of us enjoy creating content, teaching people and things like that. But we were always a bit less on the side in terms of connecting members together. We had the community forum, which was great, the Q&A calls with us, which was great, but we weren't necessarily doing anything apart from the odd sporadic thing to actually put members in a room together.
Yeah. And I think everything with the pandemic really highlighted the importance of us doing that.
Yeah. And so it was actually Memberpalooza last year, where as part of Memberpalooza, we started experimenting we ran some kind of member masterminds where we got members on Zoom, broke them into rooms and kind of everybody had time masterminding. And that was so popular that's something that we then carried forward from last September in the Academy. So we were running 2 sessions a month. I was running them at the time. And that was just a great chance for members to break out into groups of 4 or 5, have 15 minutes each to mastermind, get feedback, discuss ideas. And that was hugely popular. And that's been a big part of Hannah's role since we brought her on. It enabled us to double the number of sessions that we were doing for those huddles, to test out different times and days to find the right fit. And yeah, that's something that's definitely staying a part of the Academy going forward. And again, we've perfected that format now so that we have mixed huddles for everybody and we have growth huddles just for those in the growth stage. Yeah. And yeah, that's been a really good experimentation. And bringing Hannah on as well also allowed us to try things like accountability pods, co-working calls, more member mixers and things like that as well. Yeah. So it's really enabled us to try more in terms of live calls and connecting members together, real time, face to face.
Because the thing with that is, if it's myself or Callie that needs to facilitate this type of live thing, then the stakes are kind of a little bit higher in terms of what we need to see as a result of that, right? Because if it's just us, we have a finite amount of time in which we can try and find ways of adding value to the Academy. So if we do a member mixer call and it happens to be a quiet one and 20, 25 people turn up or less than that, And if that happens every week, then we start to think, okay, should we be spending our time on something that is getting these results? Now, this isn't to say that Hannah's time is less valuable, but Hannah's role is all about community. And so for Hannah, if she does those type of calls, if some of them are quiet, that's not as big an issue because it's not like our time is being freed up. And actually, even if there's only 5 people on a call, if those 5 people get value and they all get results as an outcome of being on that call, then that's worth the time and the effort. But it's a lot easier to justify doing things like that, doing things that don't scale, that have a smaller impact. And obviously this isn't, we're not saying like, we're doing these things and we're only looking to get 5 or 6 people. We still want lots of attendees at them. We still get lots at many of these calls, but it just means things aren't as do or die because it's not our time that's being taken up, where we have 20, 30 different things to juggle. Hannah is 100% focused on community. And so, you know what, if we do a new member mixer call and it's been a quiet week for sales and only 4 or 5 people turn up, well, that means we're giving 4 or 5 people an awesome amount of attention that otherwise we wouldn't be able to, and that's still worth doing. So the bringing in the team and the ability to experiment with these things, but also to not have to have the bar so high for whether or not something will stay, to be able to do the nice to have stuff on that front and not just the, okay, this has to move the needle in a significant way, otherwise we can't justify our time being on it. That's been a game changer for us.
Yeah, and I think it's great because it allows us to test things that have been on the list of things that we want to try or that I want to try at anyway for years.
Yeah.
But as you say, it's not been a priority for the time that we have had available over kind of things that will have a wider impact. Mm-hmm. So yeah, being able to do that has been great.
Massively. And so yeah, things like the huddles, which have been particularly successful and popular, things like the quarterly planning calls, again, very, very popular. And it just means, we can have that catchment of people and really just give them that extra accountability, the extra handholding, the extra structure to just do great things with their membership.
Yeah, and I think this is a great example actually of how experiments can filter out, because the quarterly planning course started as part of a different experiment on doing accountability pods and having kind of a 90-day accountability mini groups in the academy. And we had mixed success with that because different people wanted different things from it. Some of the groups went awesomely, were really engaged and have formed really close bonds now as a result and are still having calls with each other, whereas others were less engaged and didn't really get as much out of it. But one of the big things that everybody loved with that was the quarterly planning call that they had. And so that's something that's now been brought over into the main academy for everybody. And yeah, that's something that's really popular. And that uses our 90-day planner that we were able to create last December, which is one of my favorite things. That
awesomely designed 90-day planning workbook that Tom created in partnership with Callie. And yeah, at some point we will actually have printed versions available. Yes. Our first test run, again, this is the COVID effect of actually finding reliable people in kind of the manufacture chain.
Yeah.
It's a lot more difficult. Let's not get on to trying to find tradespeople for a house. Anyway, so yeah, things like that, things like co-working sessions, even things like we're trying out the Facebook group, which we tested out.
Still testing.
Yeah, we're still testing out. Adding in a Facebook group as an option for our community to go to for more of the casual, more of the hangout side of things versus the community, which is often more of the deeper discussions.
Yeah, and I think this has been an interesting thing because I think we talked about the Facebook group a little bit on last year's call because I think we were maybe only a month or 2 months into having it open when we did last year's roundup. And we've still got the group open, but it's been an interesting one because I think we can definitely say that everybody who says that a Facebook group is better for engagement and community than an on-site community, we can definitely say that that is not true, or definitely not for our membership. We've had
the forum is still the place to go to for our community. Yeah. And that's not because we're not trying to get people to go to the Facebook group. It's not because we're not we're not working hard to drive engagement in the community group. We are. Hannah again.
Yeah, Hannah does an awesome job of trying to get engagement in that community group and things. And it's interesting. So I think about 20%, just less than 20% of members have actually joined the Facebook group versus the forum, where about 90%, I think, have joined the forum.
And again, when we've done our annual member survey recently, and again, a lot of people, they're kind of saying they can take or leave the Facebook group. It's not something that's a priority to them to have.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it is that thing where when we had the survey feedback, seeing how few members actually joined the group in comparison, it is one of those things where you think, well, should we just shut it down? But actually, despite the fact that it's not a huge engagement driver or community driver like you would expect, there are still benefits for it. It does provide a space for people who actually don't go into the forum for one reason or another, but still want to ask a question or connect. It does provide a place for those quick discussions where you're not necessarily going to log on to a forum just to say this one thing. And it's also great for posting reminders about what's happening in the academy as well. So it's a great way for us to another format for us to remind people about things that are going on as well. So it's kind of still around, but I wouldn't say it's a raving success terms of...
It has its uses. It benefits some members. And again, kind of tying in with what I said about the fact we've now got Hannah involved, and having her so focused on community means not everything needs to be a raging success in order for us to keep it, because there's still value in having the Facebook group. If it was just us managing it, would the value be high enough for us to justify assigning some of our limited time to it? Probably not. But because we have Hannah, who has community as her sole domain, then we can keep something like that up and running, because of the fact it does benefit a portion of our members, and it does give us another way of reaching them and engaging with them. So just the ability to experiment with these things, but also to not have to make decisions based on having limited resources in just myself and Callie has been huge for us, because again, a big part of going 100% all in on the academy is really with a view to, I think you said it before, to perfecting it, right? We're never going to perfect it, but we want to reach essentially the end of what you might refer to as the product development stage. We want to reach a point where we don't need to experiment with as many things, where we don't need to change too much, where we get the formula as spot on as it's possible for us to get, in terms of this is what is going to help move the needle for members. This is what will drive them forward. This is what will keep engagement up. And we're happy with this. And we're not going to have that voice in the back of our head saying, should we start doing member mixers? Should we do accountability calls? We've seen this cool thing another membership does. Should we try that? So we want to kind of get out of that product development phase, which honestly, this isn't to say that we've still been developing the product for 6 years, because there's obviously been periods within that, particularly when we were planning our live event and stuff like that, where you're kind of looking at it as like, okay, this is what the academy offers. We're happy with this. We'll just leave it be, and we'll keep doing this. But we kind of want to get as close to the finished article. This doesn't mean we stop adding content or stop doing stuff, but in terms of the offering, we want to nail that with as much finality as we possibly can as we move into 2022. So, a big part of that is obviously centered around the community stuff, which we talked about, but also around the content. We've certainly fallen foul of early on in content creation for the academy of leaning a little too much towards wanting to teach people everything that they could do.
Yeah.
And telling them, here are 10 things you could do. And here's half a dozen things to think about just in case you're a fringe case who can't do any of those. And while the desire to cover all your bases is an understandable one, it actually leads to people not getting as much direction, as much clarity, maybe getting a bit more overwhelmed. And so, again, the renewed focus on everything we're doing in the academy, the renewed impetus on, listen, if someone's only got an hour a week to spend in the membership, we want to make sure that hour gets them results. that's led to a bit of an overhaul of our approach to content creation. It's led to the creation of new courses and updated courses, which just blow away, pretty much everything else on those topics. We've got fantastic new courses on membership marketing, creating new courses on Facebook remarketing, a very specific strategy for that, on things like branding your membership. And these are just so action-driven, so focused on, listen, here's the one thing you should do, rather than the 10 things you could do. Because actually you joined this place because we've got the expertise to be able to say to you, you don't need to think about those 9 other things. I'm telling you to do this because this is the way you should do it. This is the best approach. And this is what's going to get you results. And the feedback, the response, the results people are getting from the new courses, as well as the new membership masterclass workshops, which we started over a year ago and have continued on. Again, that highly tactical, highly specific, just do this, 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 and this, and you will get these results. Here's the templates you need. Here's the email swipes. Here's all the resources we could create. Now, all you need to do is implement. It's been a game changer, I think, in terms of our content and in terms of how people are using it and the results that they're getting from it.
Yeah, I think that the actionable style of it and the more just plug and play style of it makes it so much easier for people to just go away and implement the masterclasses, especially. I mean, we've had people live on the masterclasses actually implementing as they listen, which is awesome. Like, the results is awesome. And there is definitely still, for me in particular, there's that niggle when I'm creating something where it's like, but I also want to tell them this and I want to tell them this. And, I also know this, which I want to tell them. And so it is quite hard. I'm still getting into that new content process.
It's discipline.
Not just kind of telling you everything I know, because actually, you might find it interesting, but it's not going to be the 80% that gets you the results. It's avoiding the temptation to tell someone everything you know, and instead using everything you know to identify the 20% instead of the 80%. So that's carrying through to the courses, to the masterclass, and to the brand new membership roadmap, which honestly it's been the main thing Callie and I have been working on for pretty much the entirety of this year. This is our magnum opus. It is.
It is a beast. Not in terms of like it's, we're not creating a 60-hour course, but again, what we're saying, distilling everything we know about the membership space, everything we've achieved or we've seen others achieve, and distilling that into the most concise, clear, action-driven, tactical, practical, implementable pathway that you can follow to launch a successful membership site. It's been a massive undertaking.
It has, and it's, there's been times where doing it where I'll be honest, I've wondered, is this worth how much time it's taking to try and get this right? Because it is, again, the eventual roadmap itself, it's not going to be hours and hours of content. But what it is,
it will be hours of content.
Yeah,
it won't
but
be like
it's not like, as you say,
hours.
it's not 60 hours. But it is just making it that practical. Okay, so if we were starting again, what exactly would we do and recommend that everybody does? And how can we give people everything that they need to do that? So, literally no stone unturned in terms of making sure that you can easily implement this. And so that's been a real labor of love. And again, getting into that mindset of knowing what to cut out.
Yes, that's where most of the work
difficult.
is. That is where most of the work is. It's knowing what to keep out. And so that's, we're kind of entering the final phases of that. That will be rolling out very soon. We'll mention it a little bit more in a second. Really, I would say that experimentation, growing the team, and having our time freed up by what the team is doing for us to be able to go all in on creating this new version of the membership roadmap. That's taken up the bulk of the last year, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the team, and we probably wouldn't have the focus to do it without the circumstances that have happened within the world. And again, we mentioned before, we obviously moved house during all of this, which was one of those things that it should have been a real simple, done in a few weeks, nice and stress-free, and it turned into a bit of a mess. Having the team helped with that, obviously, because it meant, we could take extended periods of time off without worrying that we were dropping the ball for our members. What it does mean, though, is that this my little pandemic project that I had last year, which was setting up an upgraded version of our filming area, which again, Academy members or people who've caught some of the Facebook Lives will have seen that and have complimented us on it.
It was awesome.
It was awesome. Moving to the new place, the room we were going to use as our studio was just catastrophic, and we've not fixed it up yet. So if you're actually watching the recording of this podcast episode, which we're doing live as part of Memberpalooza, the setup we've got here doesn't look too bad. It's a plain coloured wall with a bit of fancy lighting and all of that stuff. But we've literally just set that up for Memberpalooza. Up until now, from having moved to now, we've gone back to being crammed around a little webcam in my office, which, nobody cares.
It's kind of nostalgic because that's what we did for the first few years. So there's a kind of nice nostalgic, but I do miss the fancy set.
So that's just a weird little side effect of building the house. But the plan is, we're going to get our studio room sorted and get it all nicely decorated, get it all properly set up. And then we've once again got that fixed filming location, because having that was so much of a game changer for us last year. Having that place where you just need to come in and flick a switch and you're ready to go live, you're ready to record a video, that makes the world of difference. And we don't necessarily have that as well now. This setup that we're using for Memberpalooza, we will need to take it down when we're done with this, because, we've just popped it in the middle of another room that gets used. It's in front of a TV and sandwiched between sofas and stuff. So it'll come down, but there's worse things in the world to have to deal with. But yeah, that's definitely something where we've taken a little bit of a step back, and that has actually knocked on to some of we're talking about things that have kind of slipped, small things that have slipped. Last year we started doing Facebook Lives a bit more, and then repurposing them into YouTube videos. Again, the situation with filming room and filming area and all that has had a knock-on effect to that. It's much easier to just be like, okay, I'm going to go live, and then go to the filming room, flick a switch, talk for 15 minutes, done, and then get that video edited and put onto YouTube. When you've got to set everything up and you've got to get the lighting right again and you've got to find the camera locate, just those extra barriers makes it much easier for you to say, you know what, let's just put that aside. So the video marketing side has slipped. Once we got the studio back, that'll be coming back.
And in a better way as well.
And in a much better way.
Plans.
Yeah, we've got some exciting plans for showing up on Facebook Live and YouTube and stuff like that. Something else that we had thought we would do, but it's just slipped, is a new version of the Membership Industry Report. So we published the online Membership Industry Report in 2019. As a result of a survey of hundreds and hundreds of membership owners to identify trends and stuff like that. We gave that away for free. We didn't even take an email address for that. And in fact, you can get a copy at membershipbenchmarks.com. You just download it for free. And it was massively popular. Again, it put some data into the world, some real information, some real figures and stats. It's been used and quoted by a variety of different companies, blogs, influencers, and so on. But we wanted to do the next version. We wanted this to be every 2 years. We would put out an updated version. And it just hasn't happened this year, and it probably won't happen until 2022.
Yeah, and I'm going to be controversial here and say I actually think it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think the stats and figures would have been so skewed by the pandemic that actually...
Why didn't you point this out first? Because what I could do is say we made a strategic decision.
Yeah, but no, I would say actually starting it, I think we said we're going to run it early next year. Yeah. That's going to give much more accurate data than having run it in 2020, 2021, when so much has been up in the air with memberships and there's been so many differences in growth to a normal year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I agree with that. That's a very good point. So I don't feel quite as bad about that not getting done this year. And it'll look fantastic as well, because we've got Tom, our designer. So that's kind of, it has been one of those kind of year of two halves, lots of things that were kind of on the periphery or on the horizon that we've kind of had to put aside or just accept that we weren't going to be able to do in order to enable us to totally focus all of our attention on the academy. And I think we've done that right in terms of, it's not just we're just focusing our time, but we're putting our money and our resources into building the team, building the infrastructure, and we're putting them to work to test out all these different things, all these things that we've always thought this would be a good idea or members might have asked for it. We've done that experimentation, and that's really helping us to crystallize what the Academy will be offering to members going forward. And it's freed us up to just level everything up on the content side of things too. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a funny thing with the roadmap, because there is that feeling now that we're so close to it being ready to launch, and it's been such a big project.
Yeah.
But there's still that anxiety that, but what if people prefer the existing one? Because we already get a lot of great feedback on the existing roadmap. It helps people launch their memberships. So I always have that thing where it's like, but people already like it.
But it's remembering we're not, like, a lot of the core principles, the core threads carry through. It's just what we're doing is, instead of, so for example, sales funnel, sales and marketing, we'll have a part in the roadmap now in which we teach you about the structure of a sales funnel, about what you might need, and we'll send you off to, you can watch this course, you can use these resources. In the new roadmap, as you go through that stage, you literally build your sales funnel. We give you the emails to use that you copy and paste. We give you the templates. We give you pre-made templates for the lead magnets that you use. So it's much more practical. And every single stage, you're doing something, you're making a real move forward. You're not just learning what to do or adding stuff to a to-do list, you are taking action. But the problem is, so those of you who've been with us for a while, those of you who are Academy members, you'll know membership roadmap we already have. It is a course that has been, I think that version's been there for 2 or 3 years now.
3, yeah.
3 years now. And it replaced the original version of the roadmap, which was actually much more of a navigational tool. It was much more of a, if you're at this stage, go and watch this course, watch this lesson, read this blog. But when we replaced that version with the current version, in the months leading up to the new version coming out, suddenly everyone started telling us how much they loved the roadmap. And so we started thinking, oh, wow, are we doing a bad thing? Because we're getting rid of the roadmap everyone's now telling us they love, and we're bringing in a new one that they haven't seen before. Now we're nearly done with roadmap 3.0. Everyone is telling us how much they love the current version of it. But it's remembering, again, when we do this, we have a transition period where anyone who's working through the current version, they can continue to access that. But we're not like consigning everything we teach to the scrap heap. We're just teaching it in a better way. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I just have a hard time letting go. I think I maybe imagine our content as being like, the toys in Toy Story, where they're actual living, breathing things, and we're putting them on the scrap heap.
Okay, I think we may be recording this. We've been recording this episode for too long now because you're getting to lose.
I need a coffee.
So the membership roadmap is something that we're going to be talking about a lot more. We're going to give you a little bit more info about that tomorrow as well. But that's kind of the big thing that's going to be coming within the next month or so. Following that, we also have some very exciting things lined up that we can't quite talk about yet for not only the people in the growth stage, so people who already have their memberships up and running, which, we've already been creating great new courses, growth game plans, masterclasses for them. We're doing the growth huddles for people in that stage too. So we've got more great stuff for people in that growth stage, but we've also got something very exciting planned for people who had just launched their membership, but they're still finding their feet. That first 90 days, 6 months kind of period where you might not consider yourself to be in the growth stage just yet. You're kind of post-launch. You're a baby membership. There's always been the thing, and this is just right across the membership industry, where you can find stuff to help you launch a membership. You can find stuff to help you grow a membership. But then you have that tricky middle bit where you still have some of the uncertainties, the knowledge gaps, the experience gaps, the problems, the questions and anxieties that someone starting a membership has, but you're having to deal with those while you're running a membership day to day as well. We've got something very, very exciting planned for people in that post-launch phase to really help you capitalize on the momentum that you get from your launch. Again, these announcements will be coming very soon. We mentioned the industry report that will be coming in 2022. As far as the Academy goes, the price will be going up. The price will be going up before the end of the year.
It was originally going to be September, but we're pushing it back a little bit.
Yeah, we're pushing it back a little bit to give us time to basically let you guys get in for the new roadmap at the current price. It's long overdue, and honestly, we were going to put the price up right before the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, we thought, we couldn't in good conscience suddenly start charging people more in a global pandemic, right? So we held off on that. We kept it at the same price that the Academy's been since 2016 at $49 a month.
Yeah, we're well overdue a price.
We're well overdue, but, it was just, we felt it was the right thing to do to keep it at its current price during the pandemic when people had tighter resources. The price increase will be happening before the end of the year. Obviously, as we always advise people to do, and we do ourselves, we follow our own advice. If anyone who is currently at $49, anyone who joins before the price increase, that price you join at is locked in. We won't be putting the price up for existing members because that sucks. So, obviously we'll be reminding you about this close at the time, but if you join between now and the price going up, that price stays that price for as long as you remain a member. So if you were ever going to join before the price goes up, and then you get that current rate locked in. So that price increase will be coming. We'll also kind of be going from having focused 100% on the Academy, which again has been largely about raising the game with the content, getting that new roadmap, experimenting with all the community, so building the team and the infrastructure. That in 2022 is going to enable us to start expanding a little more outside of the Academy in terms of ways we can help you. We're talking possibly things like a higher level mastermind. Possibly, this is a very, very, emphasize the word possibly, the limited ability to hire us privately as coaches, which we have not given people the opportunity to do that for over 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah, and deliberately so. Believe me, not a day goes by where someone doesn't say, hey, have you ever thought about offering coaching? It's like, well, of course we've thought of it because, of course we have, but we very deliberately haven't made ourselves available to hire as consultants or coaches. That may be changing in 2022, depending.
Yeah, we've not finalized our plans for that yet. We were going to bring the Membership Accelerator back this year. But again, with focusing on the Academy, reshoring up the roadmap and things like that, we wanted to wait until we could fully dedicate that as well. So Membership Accelerator was the kind of group mastermind that we had previously as well. So that or some variation of will definitely be coming back in 2022.
Yes. And we're exploring ways in which we can make ourselves available to hire privately as coaches, but it has to be something where it has to be something that works both for us and for the people we work with. Because, the problem with coaching is it is a two-way dance. And it's so very important that you set things up and you do things in a way that gives the greatest opportunity for success for the person who's hiring you. So we are blessed to be in a position where we don't have to, but kind of miss it a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, I think we've started to get that little hankering for one-to-one again. And just getting our hands dirty in somebody's business.
And we'll be talking like single digits in terms of people we work with, like 4 or 5 at the most. If we unless we change our minds on that, we'll tell you all about that soon. There is another massive change happening with the membership guys as a whole at the start of 2022, but I've been told I can't talk about that now. But that'll hit like right at the start. That'll be a new year kind of thing. But there's a big change coming with that. You'll know it when you see it. But otherwise, I think that's it for another year.
It is.
It is. It's been an interesting year. It's been a different year. It's been a year of rockier growth in some areas, which again we talked about, which was to be expected, but also unprecedented growth in other areas, like the sales, the revenue, the churn. Like we were due to kind of not have that just
Have a little plateau.
Yeah. Like, I don't want to say we've had it easy, but certainly, you know, the little wobbles, a couple of little blips and stuff like that, we've not really had to deal with before. We've been overdue. We knew it was going to happen with the pandemic. And even then, when we're talking about it, we're not talking about, oh my God, all of a sudden our revenue is halved. Like, when we say blip, to us, probably by comparison to what a lot of people have had to deal with in this pandemic, like, it's nothing. But, you know, you get accustomed, you get comfortable. So while that's been a little bit rockier than in previous years, growth in other areas, growth with the team, growth in the development of the product, growth in, I think, us as educators and community leaders and teachers is something I've been very proud of.
Yeah, I feel like this year has very much been a foundational year, a building year, a developmental year, so that we go into 2022 with, again, the academy all showed up. We've got the new roadmap, new content plans, new member experience in terms of the calls that we're doing and things like that. And then that allows us to essentially go into 2022 with more of a growth focused and play focused mindset. It allows us to go back to actually
living the snug life.
Yeah, living the snug life and enjoying, like, just showing up in the academy and playing, essentially, rather than everything being focused on creating new content and things like that. Yeah,
it's been a bit of a shot in the arm in terms of just being able to get back to basics, back to the core of what we do. Like, forget about conferences, forget about other products, even forget about books, forget about, let's just get back to the roots of what we do. Let's make sure that foundation is where it needs to be in today's world in light of the pandemic and all of that, because we've got no qualms to admit there's a degree to which we had become complacent with certain aspects of what we were doing. And while our members never suffered for it, while our business didn't suffer for it, we take a lot of pride in knowing we're doing our absolute best work and we're not resting on our laurels. So while there's been a lot of challenges for all of us with what's been going on in the world, that little extra nudge for us to just get back to the core and almost have this as like the next phase of growth for the business. Okay, you know, we built this up as a product that 2 people created and run and maintain. Now let's go, let's remold it, let's strengthen it. Now we've got the team and build it up so it's even better and even stronger. And we've got a better platform to then do things like events, things like coaching and stuff like that in the future. So I'm very excited for the next year.
I am. And I think it's interesting. It feels like, without wanting to sound too woo-woo, that kind of all of this is leading to that next up level. As you said, you know, we've built the existing academy. We've built this 7-figure business with just the 2 of us and with the things we'd been doing before. So if we take all of that to the next level, then what does that make possible?
And the thing is, you know, this isn't just a kind of like, oh, we just always want to be amazing and this, that, and the other. Like, we have to up our game.
Yeah, so much more competition.
There's a lot more competition because, you know, there's points where this is still a relatively small market. There's still, I can count on half of one hand how many people in this space have the credentials, the experience, the knowledge, the pedigree to teach memberships. It's a very narrow field, and I recognize some people might think it's egotistical to say that, knowing that we count ourselves amongst that very small number. But the thing is, you know, there's some people who maybe learned about memberships for the first time a year or 2 ago, and they've done an all right job with their own membership, and now they're starting to teach others. And so right now, you can look at them and say, okay, well, they built one membership. It's been successful to a small degree. Now they're off teaching other people how to do it. But the thing is, in 2 or 3 years' time, their pedigree might have built, their body of work might have built, and all of a sudden, I need that other half of a hand to count how many people we're competing with. So again, on the notion of not resting on your laurels, not taking anything for granted, we always need to be the best, because what we offer, I'm a little biased, what we offer is the absolute best solution for anyone at any phase of planning, building, launching, growing a membership site. And I don't want that to change. We've always had this thing of we want the bar set so ridiculously high that the notion of even trying to compete with us scares people, right? And you can't do that if you stand still. You can't do that with the same thing you were doing 6 years ago. So it's a competitive and it's a strategic thing as well. But also, it is, like you said, there's the fun side of it. You know, it's while it's been a lot of hard work, almost like clearing the slate in terms of like the roadmap in particular. Okay, let's just go wipe the slate in terms of how we teach things. And let's just approach this as though this is the very first time we were creating any sort of product that teaches people how to launch a membership. In 2021, with everything that's available, with everything that's changed, with every market situation, how would we do it now? And that's been fun for me because it's almost like going back in time to 6 years ago. So yeah, and I think that's a nice place to round off today's episode. Lots of exciting things ahead. As always, we're so immensely appreciative of everyone who's been with us on this journey, whether you've been with us for 6 years or for 6 days. We love everyone, our Academy members, our membershippers, our podcast listeners, Facebook group members, anyone who reads the blog, obviously all our friends, connection supporters who we're looking forward to actually seeing in person, hopefully sometime in the near future.
We have a holiday at some point as well.
We need a holiday at some point, definitely. So yes, thank you to each and every person who's ever given us even the smallest iota of your attention, your time. We truly, truly appreciate it. You enable us to run a business that doesn't feel like a business, do a job that doesn't feel like a job, and live a life that
snug.
Is snug, that we generally couldn't have envisioned living even 6 years ago when we were starting this journey. So thank you so much. I hope that this little retrospective has been useful, entertaining, informative, inspiring, or has just helped you to pass 90 minutes of your day. That is it from me. Thank you, of course, to the better half, my partner in crime, the one and only Miss Callie Willows, for joining me on the show.
Pleasure as always. I'm going to kind of sneak into more episodes next year, I've decided.
You're really not. That was not on the agenda. No, we might have to because, it's 321
I was going to say,
episodes.
you're getting bored on your own.
I'm not getting bored. It's just, 321 different things to talk about. You start to run out of material. We just need to get you on the show to just chat nonsense.
It's really scary realizing the other day that I started blogging about memberships 10 years ago.
You did? Membership Sensei
back in 2011. And Jesus, that's made me feel old.
It's because you are. My love, you are old. As am I.
Midlife crisis time.
Yes. All right. That's the best place to end it as we start our existential midlife crisis. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I'll be back again next week with another installment of the Membership Guys podcast. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Membership Guys podcast, we invite you to check out membershipacademy.com. The Membership Academy is the essential resource for anyone at any stage of starting, growing, and running a membership website. Whether you're still trying to figure out what your idea is going to be, or whether your website is already up and running and you're just looking for ways to grow it and attract new members, then the Membership Academy can help you to get to the next level. With our extensive course library, monthly training, exclusive member-only discounts, perks and tools, and a supportive, active community to help you along the way with feedback, encouragement and advice, the Membership Academy is the perfect place to be for anyone looking to start, manage and grow a successful membership website. Check it out at membershipacademy.com.